that's one reason why we had the plane. You know, we could just fly in the place. So we could base in like, you know, one area and then fly into the, you know, take helicopters or whatever. And, but yeah, it was, you know, mainly getting Axl on stage. You know, that was, he had a lot of assistants going on then. I mean, it became a very big group of people. It went from something that was like small and friends to, you know, chiropractors, massage therapists, assistants for assistants, managers' assistants. I mean, it just started growing and growing and growing. And it just got very, very big.
Axl was becoming more and more of a control freak, more and more paranoid. He had a bigger and bigger entourage around him who was there to fuel his paranoia and to suck up to his ego. And the worse it got with Axl, the more that the rest of the band pandered to it. I remember in Dallas, just before the Use Your Illusion albums came out, they were staying at, obviously, at a very nice hotel. However, Axl was on a different floor to the rest of them. Not only that, but none of the band could actually go up and say, hey, Axl, should we hang out and have a drink? They'd have to actually go through his personal assistant and his bodyguard to get to talk to their own singer. I remember talking to Slash and saying, what's going on? Slash said, it's what Axl needs to deal with the situation. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. They were ceding more and more ground to Axl, to the point where eventually Axl could threaten them, as he did. I'm not going to go on stage tonight unless you sign this piece of paper giving me control of Guns N' Roses, which they duly did, which was a daft move. So yes, Axl was becoming more and more of a recluse, more and more of a control freak, more and more distant from the rest of the band, but the rest of the band allowed that to happen, and everyone around Axl and the band allowed it to happen, to the point where the band were disintegrating. They were no longer a band. It was a bunch of guys who turned up and went on stage, maybe.
During a show in St. Louis, the volatile nature of Axl and some of Guns N' Roses fans would be brought sharply into focus.
The St. Louis riot, that was a real bummer, okay? Some guy was like bluntly taking pictures, you know, and just, he was a biker guy, and he was like really pushing it, you know, with the security guys and just kind of showing everybody, look what I can do, right? And so Axl just had it, and he jumped into the audience after the guy. And the band actually tried to go back out on stage. And, you know, the kids just started pulling up the chairs, they started carrying them down to the front and then throwing them up onto the stage. So to me, you know, they just got into it. It just got way out of hand. The band left. They sent the band off in a van, and me and a few other people stayed back. But that thing, they tore apart the stage. I think they probably lost like half their gear in that riot. And like the cops too, I remember they were like shooting people with fire hoses on the stage, and then when it got too hectic, they would leave. So, you know, that's one reason why I feel that stage got torn apart, because the cops didn't stay up there.
Axl was eventually arrested on charges stemming from the St. Louis riot, but his lawyers were quickly able to acquit him with only minor fines to pay. During this period, he was also accused of battery by his ex-fiancée, Stephanie Seymour. With Axl's life seemingly spiraling out of control, Guns N' Roses came off the road and went back into the studio to record what would become their last project together.
We also mixed Spaghetti Incident and also the one song for Interview with a Vampire, the Rolling Stones cover. But when those records were, when Spaghetti Incident and the one single for the Tom Cruise movie were being done, it was a whole lot less of a group effort by then. You know, things were coming apart, shall we say, and I don't think the focus was the same, and certainly people were not working together on those projects like they were working. There was an amazing effort on everybody's part during Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 to work together. I don't think that same working together ethic was involved with Spaghetti Incident or the Interview with a Vampire. It definitely, at that point, it seemed over to us from the outside. In my mind, that record came out after it was over. It was, the energy reached its peak during Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
It was a band going into the studio almost for the sake of it. Well, what should we do? Bunch of covers? Why not? Okay. There's no heart, no passion in it. It was just churned out. Let's get it out there. They didn't seem to believe in it themselves. And if they didn't, why should anybody else? And I've got to say, it was a real nadir in their career. It was the end of Guns N' Roses, as it were.
Guns N' Roses continued attempting to record another album, but by the summer of 1995, it had become obvious that the band was falling apart.
There's a few versions of this out there. Everybody seems to have selective memories of this. I was talking to Axl pretty much daily on the phone during the time when the whole band it just seemed like the whole thing was just starting to go away. They were arguing over type of direction they should be going in. I seem to remember that Slash wanted to keep it rock and roll. Axl wanted to go in a different direction. Now, I've heard Axl's version, and I just know what I remember, okay? But he wanted to bring in another guitarist, you know, and I think that would have alienated Slash quite a bit, considering he was the lead guitarist of the band. And if you're going to bring in another lead guitar, shouldn't he be the one who picks him?
Unfortunately, by that point, Axl had gained complete control. And so they were reliant on what Axl did or didn't do. And he started to make strange decisions. He brought in an old pal of his, Paul Hughey, on guitar to play on their version of Sympathy for the Devil. I remember talking to Slash at the time and saying, who is Paul Hughey? And Slash saying, no clue, never met him, I don't know who he is, he's a mate of Axl's. The band were going through a period where no one seemed to know quite what was going on. Slash and Duff, I think, were getting increasingly fed up with the nonsense that was happening, and eventually reached the stage that I think anybody would have done, saying, we can't deal with this anymore. Now, we don't know when we're recording. We can't even make a decision as a band because we're reliant on Axl. We can't talk to Axl because he won't let us, so what are we doing? We go into the studio, we sit there, and then go home. It was a waste of time and nonsense, and that's been going on ever since.
I think it hurt Axl when people started leaving. Because, you know, as much crap that people say about Axl, deep down inside, he's got a really, really great heart, okay? He's hard to deal with at times, in fact, extremely hard to deal with at times, but he's a very good person deep down inside. And, you know, he wants things his way, and when the guys started leaving, I think it really affected him, because I know certain key band members that he would talk about constantly, and when he talks about somebody constantly, that's because they hurt him.
By 1997, there were no original members of Guns N' Roses left in the band. Axl had decided to continue under the GNR banner, and although various replacement band members were announced, no new releases or performances emerged. Axl Rose simply disappeared from public life. For years, there was no word from the Guns N' Roses camp, only constant rumour and conjecture about possible recordings and the nature of Axl's relationship with an Arizona